Alright guys, I'm back. Now my son's gonna come in here and he's gonna ask me about some stuff. So I might have to take a little sidestep, but in the meanwhile, Q&A time, friends. Q&A time. Time for Q's.
Can you hear me?
Unfortunately, yeah.
I didn't know if my mic still worked. I unplugged it for a sec.
Okay.
Can you do a little values demo, like how you pick your values?
Oh yeah, sure, I can do something like that.
Cool.
I pick
Excellent.
them by being a boss. Alright, next question.
Oh yeah. How do you be a boss?
I'm just kidding. So the way that I work essentially is really simple. I usually lay down a value. I do like a stroke of some sort, whether I push lightly or I push really opaquely. I can either get a value that I would like in a few strokes. So for instance, if I want a light value, I can do that, and that's pretty much the value that I probably want to work with. And not only that, I have a good sense of where this lives on the hue cube. Like this would be like right around this area. You see that? Do you see it's like right there?
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That
You understand
means,
values.
yeah, I understand values. I can almost see them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that is not something that is easy to teach. That is something you practice. Like I can't
Comes with
tell you.
time.
Yeah, I can't tell you. That is this. Like, you have to like have a gut feeling on that, and that requires yes time and effort. For instance, let's switch to swatches. Make it a little bit more challenging. Okay. Now, so this will be a little bit more challenging in terms of finding it exactly on the hue cube, but this color right here, this red, um, is mostly saturated, so it's going to be on this side of the hue cube, but it's also going to be somewhere in the middle, right? So let's find out. Yeah, so it's actually mostly saturated, it's completely saturated. But see, I got the value though. Like I can see the value, I got the value almost right on, you know? Which means basically what I'm trying to imply is that I can, yeah, I think that's pretty close. Oh, okay, it was a little shade darker. I always go a little lighter than normal. But see, I was able to get pretty close to even spotting the value of that red. You see that? And
Okay.
I've only been getting better at that recently because for the last year and a half or something like that, or maybe the last year, I've just been strictly painting color, like straight out of color, to practice this. Okay. I've always had a good sense of color, but it was always reliant on my values. Values can take you really far. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So being really good at values is more important than being good at colors because if you have good values, you can cheat good colors because colors aren't that impressive once you understand how simple they are. And then it's really the values that makes people's paintings look great.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how do I pick my values? Well, I pick them based off of knowing some simple rules and just staying consistent. Like if you look at science, force equals mass times acceleration, right? So that means to apply a certain amount of force, right, you would need a certain amount of mass times a certain amount of acceleration that will give you a larger assertion of force, correct?
Correct.
So if you were to throw a BB, if I were to pick up a little plastic BB and throw it at your face at let's say 25 miles an hour, that's pretty fast. Let's say 10 miles an hour. Okay? A little BB,
Okay.
10 miles an hour. Oh wait, hold on just a second. Time out. So force equals mass times acceleration, right? So if I threw a BB at your face at 10 miles an hour, right, smacks you in the face, it would hurt, maybe a little bit, but since the mass is so tiny, the force is tiny, right? Now, if I threw a bowling ball at your face, a 25-pound bowling ball, which is really heavy, at your face at 10 miles an hour, right? The mass of the bowling ball is much larger,
Right.
and so it's going to hurt a lot.
A lot more, yeah.
Yeah, and there's other stuff that adds to the equation in terms of tension, like how small the surface is. Like if the mass is tiny, I'm sorry, the mass is large, but the object is tiny, right? Like if the bowling ball is this big, but then if we took the same mass, but we just condensed it and pushed it in to make it this small, but it contained the same mass, it would contain the same force. But now the difference is like when your torso was this big, you know, there's a lot of surface to resist breaking through your skin potentially. It'll give you a big bad bruise, whatever. But if you had the same thing, there's just less surface tension, meaning that most of the tension would be concentrated right here versus, let's say, over here. You know, math, science, physics, awesome, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what am I getting at? I'm getting at following consistencies, following constant things that are just true will allow you to do things better, not only in science, but also in painting. So having an equation, for instance, kind of like artistic equation is useful. For instance, um, if I know that if I have, let's say, a graphic read like let's say there's an object right here, okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
I know that if I darken this light value right here, that there's a certain ratio that this value will get darker. You see? In which this value will get darker. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, sorta.
Basically what I'm trying to say is that knowing the rate in which these values will stay consistent in their shadow and in their light will allow me to render something that looks like it's turning. It's like a turning force, or form, I mean. See that?
Okay.
Because what ends up happening in some cases, people will either darken things too much, so the whole thing loses the dramatic appeal or the dramatic graphic read, or they'll lighten things too much. You see what I'm saying? Because they're not
Yeah.
following any consistency. So you noticed that earlier I did this demo where I had an object like this, and then I had like a value like this, let's say, and then let's just do this. Let's do this one. Okay, so those are all local values. So then when I go here, I do a really harsh shadow like that, but if I tone it down a bit, it looks like it's turning a little bit, right? The force of form.
Yeah.
I keep saying force since I was using that equation. Okay, so what I'm trying to get at right here is that there's a consistency in the values. Okay, this is why it looks more convincing. And so when you start to know this stuff, you can start to eyeball whether you're off or not. For instance, I know that I'm light in this, so I know another equation, which is, although it may appear that this value is much brighter than it actually is, it's not that bright. Like you see this, you feel like they're very similar, this light value here and this value right here, but the
Yeah.
evidence is contrary, meaning that this and this are dramatically different. This is the bounce light from the, this is the bounce light value, and this is the light value of the same shape right here.
Right.
But how am I, like, how do I know how much to push? That's the question. Well, the question is, I know it has to be very subtle, because it's context related, meaning that I don't go in there doing something like this, which overblows it.
Yeah.
Okay? And you see this time and time again from people. Uh, this still feels accurate because it just feels like a really bright light is over there. But my point is that that's what you have to avoid. You have to kind of avoid pushing too much contrast and staying pretty simple. Because let's check it out. This thing up here that I did right now, I can do something like this where I can now, let's say, like pop this out a little bit, like as if it just like bent. And you can probably just take this all the way over here. A bit cheap, a bit cheaper, a bit cheaper, faster. Okay. All right. But see, this little stripe, we forgot about it. Got to bring it back. But see, it's in the light. But see what I've done? All I did was color pick from the already painted values that I have here.
Right.
You get it?
Yeah.
It's a little sloppy, but you get my point.
Yeah.
And then just stay consistent. And so when you practice this, you'll get better and better, and you'll be able to spot your values much faster.
Okay.
Yee. Yee. All right.
Hello, can I ask a question?
Nope.
No.
No,
I mean,
ladies. Only, yeah, ask one of the more superior sex to ask the question for you. Sorry.
you're superior.
Oh, burn, sick burn. All right, go ahead.
Okay, if you had a pile of like anonymous portfolios in front of you and you were sorting through them,
Uh-huh.
what would make you look at it and say like, oh, this person's new, or oh, they're a student versus this person's a professional?
Um, I would I would say, do they have a college degree? Because that's the way I determine how they will get a job. I'm just kidding. That's never a conversation that you'll
Yeah.
see art directors have when looking at art portfolios. So you had a really good question though. What are the clear signs that you're a student? Well, having still life, figure drawings in your portfolio, those are dead ringers. Or
Mhm.
you're just not aware of what people really want to see. They don't care that you can draw well. They care if you can do the job. And drawing well could be a huge facet of that. I always encourage it because it broadens your range of skills. But in some cases, you'll be shocked that some studios don't care about that. But it's important to have professional looking stuff in your portfolio. So usually the kinds of things I see that I know that are students is they'll have still life and figure drawing, or they'll have an array of just dozens and dozens of different um, like variations of different styles or projects. Like they'll like one page would be 2D animation. It's like it'd be art concept art for like an animated like story of some sort, and then right the next page after that would be like 3D art that could be in like some sort of web game, and then following right after that would be some sort of weird kind of thesis on like I don't know, just like some other kind of obscure art that really doesn't reflect any true skill. Okay. And then
Yeah.
the difference between that and like a pro portfolio is pretty staggering, because a professional usually is just really, really good, meaning that they have quality images, quality sense of design, quality presentation, meaning like it doesn't mean there's like a lot of borders or crazy like fonts or anything like that. It's just either really simple and clean and well thought through, like they didn't just throw a bunch of images into like a page and just kind of scattered them, whatever. Like no, that is pretty well thought through. Um, some could be presented in like as like a marketing kind of set of images. Like I know some like 3D Frenzy and stuff like that. Like they'll do like this weird kind of beautiful studio lit shots of their renders and like super close-ups, and it feels like it's like some sort of cologne commercial for their artwork. But that's good. It's professional, right? And then there's people like me who just make a really nice image and just make the whole image nice. You know, like I crop in on my character sometimes, or if the whole character is in view, then it's presented in a very clear and concise way. You know,
Yeah.
and
What
so
about like including thumbnails versus just the finished design?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's all part of it. Like that could be professionally done. Like I usually encourage people to have their thumbnail sketches on one page and then their final image on another. Or you can have it all on one page, you know? They can have the whole design, like all their designs on one page and their final render. It could be that too. But having a very clear, like I'm a professional in your artwork is obvious. And if you don't know what that is, I'm telling you. And it's simple. It's just really quality images. And if you don't know what that means, I mean, look at your favorite artists that you really admire that work in studios. That is quality images. You know, like there was a time. Okay, think of it as simple as this. There was a time where people called people geniuses, and it really meant something. Okay,
Yeah.
what I mean by this? Well, the word genius implied that this person just knew something that like inherently no one else had access to, right? Like they were just like insanely talented, perhaps. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Or they were just given a godly gift, and so they were considered geniuses. You understand?
Mhm.
But what I'm trying to tell you is that um, the reason why people felt this way about certain people, even the word talent, I think, is because access to information was just so limited. All right. And so these quote unquote geniuses and these quote unquote talented individuals, they weren't necessarily talented or gifted or, you know, genius. They just had access. Okay. They had like
Mhm.
access to this stuff that nobody knew that you can do. Leonardo da Vinci, for instance, he went to painting school. His parents were aristocrats. He had wealth in his name and in his family. So he had access to all that information, that education, you know, and it meant something. It was like an apprenticeship for like years, and he had like 7 to 8 years or something like that at a very early age. So he wasn't tainted by any kind of preconceived notions of how to be a good painter. So of course he accelerated more than his peers, right?
Yeah.
Um, and he had access to all this stuff. Michelangelo, the flip side, he didn't have access to that stuff, but he stole access. He would go to people's houses, take their paintings, like literally steal people's paintings, and then like draw and learn from them because that was the only way he could learn, you know. And
Mhm.
he built himself a cart that would take like a whole day, and then the next day he'll take that cart out into the mountains, which would be like a whole thing. He'll build a trail to the mountains. That would be like a whole day, and then the next day he'll take the cart up the mountain, uh, onto the trail, take all the materials he would have, bring them back, and then he would have all the materials ready for that day, and then he'd probably take another day off just relax. And then the following day, he would begin sculpting, you know?
Oh, wow.
Well, what do we do to sculpt these days? Open up ZBrush, right?
Yeah.
We have access to all of this information is what I'm trying to get at, okay? Everybody has access to become, quote unquote, a genius, okay? And so if you're in this conundrum, you don't know what to do, like ask yourself some pragmatic and practical questions, like, well, what does other professionals' artworks look like? Could you find that answer out on your own?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, right? Like, just ask the question, and then there's bound to be an answer available to you guys. And like I said, this is a very recent phenomenon. Okay, we're living in the age of information. Okay, meaning that, like, we had the Stone Age, meaning that we were able to manufacture and create structures and tools out of stone. And then we had like the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, then we had the Industrial Age, and then now we have the Information Age. That's the age that we're living in right now. And so take advantage of it. And so, yeah, I mean, going back to just a simple answer, though, to what makes a professional portfolio, just having really, really outstanding work. It doesn't need to be complicated. There's no, like, if you're looking for like the little subtleties to how to get an edge on your your competition, right? Like you're thinking way too broad. Okay. You're thinking way too small. I mean, like you're focusing on the wrong detail. It's a good parallel to the kind of question you ask would be like what kind of shoe does Usain Bolt wear? So that way I can start running as fast as Usain Bolt.
Yeah.
Do you see my point is like it's irrelevant. Even if you bought his shoes, you're not going to all of a sudden run as fast as him, right? Just because you present your portfolio really nice, just because you add thumbnails and an image, or just because you frame your images in a certain way, or you put your images in a certain order, or whatever I could have told you, if your work isn't good, well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so don't be distracted by any of that little stuff. Focus on just getting better. Just getting better and better and better and better and better. And eventually you'll just be so good. You'll realize, why did I even bother getting business cards? Like what's the point of having that? It's just stuff to say, like, it's like the lowest common denominator type of stuff. Like people are looking for the minimal amount of effort to get like a real step ahead in this career that they're trying to get. And I'm trying to tell you right now, that is superficial. Don't focus on that. You're just distracting yourself. Just the better question is, how do I improve my anatomy? How do I improve my lighting, my forms, my perspective? Things that other people don't want to do because it's either boring or it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, the difference between me and all those who didn't make it that went to school with me is I just did more work than them. And it's not to say that I'm a harder worker either. I just did more. That's all. I just kept at it longer. When they were playing Street Fighter, I was drawing monsters. When they were going out dancing, I was drawing robots.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not trying to dog people for going out dancing and playing video games. I actually encourage that. I'm just saying, I just knew that if I did too much of either of those, then I wouldn't really move too much.
Right.
Because I still played video games. I still went out. I still hung out with my friends. I think after class I was going to go watch Guardians of the Galaxy. Because it's good to just be free and let loose a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
So hopefully that answers your question, gives you some insight.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Some tips to on your portfolio building. A good way to build your portfolio is to have it reviewed often by industry professionals, because you'll get a wide range of advice and criticisms that will contradict but also potentially support where you're going with your work. Get it seen, get constant feedback.
Hello?
Theo,
Hi.
is that you?
Yep.
Sound like a
Do I sound like a
robot.
robot?
Yeah, what the?
Really?
What
What?
is wrong with your... Yeah,
Do I
go ahead.
sound really?
Yeah, go ahead and talk anyway. I think I could still probably hear you enough
Okay.
to answer your question. And then
Yeah, in our last class, I think you said you made a mistake to do like a regular full-time job. I wonder why.
I'm sorry. Say, yeah, your robotness is not. Yeah, just come back and ask the question.
Okay.
Yeah, you come back pretty
Great.
quickly, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Hey AJ, after you answer his question, could you maybe enlighten us about, for those of us who haven't been to any like illustration or concept art events, like the cons and stuff like that, like how to go like approach people and stuff like that?
Yeah, answer's easy. Pull down people's pants and push them down a flight of stairs. That's the best way to make friends.
That's how you get noticed? Okay.
Yeah. No, I'll answer that
Cool.
seriously in just a second. Go ahead, Teo.
Oh, hello.
Hey, bud.
Do I sound okay now?
Yes, of course.
Oh, I said in our last class, I remember you said you made a mistake to do like regular full-time job. I wonder why.
I made a mistake. Can you elaborate? I'm not sure what you're
I
getting
think
at.
what you mean is like you prefer to do contract instead of like a permanent full-time, like in a studio.
Still not sure, but I'm gonna go ahead and answer this question the way that I think by just talking about why I do what I do. I think that might be the best way to answer it.
Yeah.
So right now, I work 30 hours, 20 to 30 hours a week. Some days I work a little bit more, some days I work a little less. Sometimes I work on the weekends. It all spreads out. And what I was potentially trying to allude to, I'm not sure exactly, but I'll just tell you kind of how I think about this stuff, and then that will answer your question, hopefully, is that when I first started out in school, I would paint like 10 hours a day. I actually did work very hard, you know. And it wasn't like a consistent 10 hours. It was just like, oh, my daughter came to give me a hug. Hold on just a second. Is everything okay, sweetie? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just wanted to give me a hug?
I just need to ask you something.
Okay, you know what? You've been waiting patiently. Go ahead and ask me real quick. I'm talking to somebody, but I'll answer your question right now.
I can have crackers.
Crackers?
Hi,
Yeah, you can have some crackers. Just ask Mama or Dee.
Daddy.
Hey, Boo-Boo.
Mama, I need to do my homework.
Okay, well then leave her alone, Mama.
Do my homework.
You want to do homework? Here.
Yeah.
Not right now, Boo-Boo. Let me, I'm still teaching. Can you go and close the door? I like your hat. You look cool. All right. So close the door, please. Thank you, sir. So I worked like 10, 12 hours sometimes. I would show up to school at like when the doors would open, which would be like 7 or 8, and then I would leave school when the doors would close, which would be like at 12 sometimes.
Wow.
And it's not like I was working every second, every minute either. I was just actively engaged for that long, right? Obviously, I would eat, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? Obviously, I would go and hang out with my friends whenever they would want to go do stuff. But I was pretty much a student, right? Like that whole time. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed sitting there, painting, learning how to become a painter. It just seemed very clear. It was a path that I wanted to do. And I just got really good at it. So then I'm thinking, the whole time, the whole idea of going to school and working so vigorously so that when you get a job, you can take a step back and work less. But the opposite happened. I worked at a job and I worked even harder because I wanted to make sure that I had a really good job. But then I, I was able to go out and meet people. That's how I met my wife, and put a lot of time in my wife and all that stuff. But I still was working at least 8 hours a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I did that. And then, eventually I started working for even bigger companies like Sony. And that's when I started working like 10, 12 hours a day again, whether I was working the whole time or I would drive there. I was very committed. I remember driving up to 4 hours every day from Irvine to LA to work at Sony for about a year and a half. And I didn't have an extra car, so I actually had to rent a car because we couldn't afford just to straight up buy one. Ironically, I had enough money to pay payments on the car, but I just didn't do it because it just was like a headache to save money. It was so hard. But so I worked very hard, is what I'm trying to say. Like worked really hard, and I started teaching.
Did you like walking
Huh?
in Sony? Did you like walking in Sony?
Did I like working at Sony?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But that's not the point. I'm trying to explain, like, I was just work and work and work and work, and every day I spend like easily 8 to 10 hours just working, like all day. And I know that I wasn't entirely happy. Like I would say, well, I want to be home more. So then I left Sony to work for a place near home because my daughter was born, so I wanted to be closer to her. So that's why I moved to back to Irvine, or worked back in Irvine. But then I worked there for a few years, again, working too hard, and then going back and forth from LA jobs and what have you. And then eventually, having the great opportunity to work at Blizzard. I worked all these other jobs too in between freelance. I worked for like Sony, or not Sony, Fox. I worked for Hasbro and Paramount, and I worked at all these different odd jobs. I worked at Method Studios, etc. And last studio job, real in-house studio job I had was like Magnopus, a really amazing VR company. But I stopped that too.
Nice.
And then I work now as a part-time art director on this video game, right? Which is a lot of fun. But that's where I'm at now, right? But this whole time I was working hard, and I was trying to get better, and I was becoming more successful. I did a lot of great things, and I became very, very successful, but also made a lot of great failures and fell very hard in some instances, like especially like some schools that I worked for didn't go so well. No bad blood, but I could have handled it better if I was more responsible, but I wasn't. And it's just because I was overworking. I was doing too much too often, and I wasn't able to focus. Okay. And so the last 2 years, I've been working hard to work very little. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
because I realized a very, very sad truth, which was this is never going to stop. I want to keep working extremely hard all the time. It's like I have to actually make an effort to work less, you know? Like it's not
Yeah.
going to just happen. Like I'm not just going to break the bank and then now I'll never have to work ever again kind of thing. Like no, I'm always going to be working. This is how I am. Like even if I did make millions and millions of dollars doing something, I'd still kind of be bored just doing nothing. And so I'd still have to like find a way to learn stuff and do stuff, right? So that's why I started to work backwards. So I downsized the studio. I stopped paying. I work from my bedroom now. I don't have 2 monitors. I only have 1 monitor. So I have less distractions. I can stay more focused, right? It's just like I did everything in my power, just like shrunk. And I've now in a position where I make more money than I did when I was working for big studios. And I work way less, more time that I can actually work on the stuff that I actually care about.
That's great.
It is great. And so there's a few stories that I want to tell you. So I just wanted to say that. That's why I stopped painting for a second. So it's easier for me to focus on what I was going to talk about. I'm going to tell you a few stories. Well, actually, I'll save the one story for a later day because it's better it's better as a closer story. And I think you already heard it, but it'd be better for the rest of the class to hear it towards the end of class.
Yep, sure.
But one thing that I did hear, and I'll tell you this one right now. I was hanging out with some people, and I think I was either hanging out, I forget exactly the moment or the context of the moment, but basically I was told or I read that, there's only so much time in a day. And what you do with that time is the only real currency that we can't have any control over, Meaning
Yes.
that meaning that when time goes past, we don't get that time back. Unless we can become, like, I believe, 7th or 6th-dimensional creatures. But let's just stay with what we have today, okay? Well, we can't do that, right? Well, like the moment that I just talked to you about, like my journey, I just explained that time has already passed, okay?
Okay.
Like the beginning of this painting that I did has already passed. Luckily, it was recorded in time, but it's gone, right? If I didn't record it, it would have been gone.
Yeah. Yes.
And so what you do with that time is very, very valuable. And one of the key components, or one of the key points of what the story is that I was told this, and I was like, yeah, of course I understand that. And then they made it clear to me. It says, well, think of it like this. You can either be really, really great in your career, or you can be really, really great as a father, a husband. But you can't be great at both. And then that hit me like a freight train. You understand me? Because I'd rather be a great father, husband than a great artist. And so that's what the last 2 years was, me changing that.
Mm.
Yeah, you just heard it right now, right? My children just came in. I was able to talk to them because I can do that. I work from home. I'm not in some sort of obscure environment where they don't know what I'm doing. They know exactly what I do. They see me painting. They know that I work, and they can just come and give me hugs. That's all my daughter did. She just came in here, gave me a hug, and she wanted some snacks. And I said, okay, take your mama. Because that's what I prefer. I'd rather that happen rather than me getting photos or videos of my children doing cool stuff and me being nowhere to be found. And so this is kind of the moral of what I hopefully you were trying to get at. And so did I not like working at big studios? Of course not. I love working at big studios. Did I not like doing freelance or contract work? Of course I like doing, it's fun to paint monsters. It's fun to paint characters and work with other talented and extremely amazing and skilled workers, right? And being surrounded by those types of people. But I'd rather be surrounded by my daughter and my sons. That's really what it comes down to. It's really that simple. I'd rather be surrounded by my close friends, hanging out with them. I haven't done that in so long, right? But now I do it all the time. You know what I mean? I hang out with friends all the time. I play video games again. You know what I mean? I haven't played video games lately because I've been learning how to make video games, but I can if I wanted to. I can go outside with my children. I can, if there's an appointment, it's not so hard anymore. If there's something we need to do, we can do stuff during the weekdays. We don't have to wait to the weekends. It's just a better circumstance, and this is what I encourage my students to be ambitious towards. Not be ambitious towards working for, let's say, like a big studio or something like that. That's just one step, right? One part of the journey. But work towards a life where you are doing the kinds of things you like. And one thing that I will say is that, it all takes time, right? Like if I didn't do all the stuff that I did, I wouldn't have had this insight. I wouldn't have been this clear or level-headed if the stuff that didn't happen, if the stuff that happened to me didn't happen to me, I don't know. Maybe I'd still be working really hard and neglect my family. But because it did the way
Yeah.
that it did, I'm very thankful because it opened my eyes.
So it's like a matter of choice.
Hmm.
It's a life choice.
Yeah, think of it. Here's another way to think of it. Tomorrow you can get hit by a bus. All right. So
Yep.
if like, I don't want you to, man, but I'm just saying it can happen. So if the last things that you were doing were things that you didn't care about, then perhaps you were distracted with external goals and ambitions that other people may have put onto you too strongly. Like the best time in my whole career was trying to have a career, like trying to become a concept artist, because I was very much in the moment of trying to become good and learning all kinds of amazing stuff about painting and design, you know?
Yeah, thanks a lot. That's how I feel now, actually.
Okay, good.
It's getting better, but not there yet.
Yeah, like I say, everything takes work. Don't think that working less is easier to do, because it's intuitively sounds like, oh, well, you just stop working so much, right? No, like that also is hard to do because you have to make sure that you're financially sound. But work towards that. Like a lot of people don't necessarily actively work towards a lifestyle like that. They just want to. They assume that working for a big studio or a big company will fix that problem automatically, right? Another thing that I ran into that became very clear, which is just because you make more money doesn't mean you keep more money. So we were having issues where, imagine even if you make like let's say $100,000 a year, if you have an expense that goes up to $150,000 a year, then you're technically negative $50,000, aren't you? You're still going to be living paycheck to paycheck. I saw a video about this too. The guy named it like appropriately, which is like lifestyle scaling, where when people make more money, they change their lifestyle to make they'll buy bigger things and more expensive stuff, even though they technically
Yeah,
don't really have the money to do it. And
it's
so
called a rat race.
yeah, so it's the same. Like everybody can fall into it. This is why you see like these millionaire like basketball players that go bankrupt after they suffer from like a major injury, because they went from $500 a month buying like Air Jordans being like the most expensive thing that they would buy, to making $500,000 a month buying Lamborghinis and like $1 million houses that they're paying off still, right? And so then when they get like pull a hamstring and they're out for the season, or maybe they're out for the game entirely, they have these $1 million debts, you know? It's
Yeah,
okay if like $500, like, I mean, it still sucks. Like life sucks if you're making that much money, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that, like, just because you make more money doesn't mean you're all of a sudden all your problems are solved. Just because you have a better job doesn't mean all of your problems are solved. These are all need
yep,
time and effort to be worked out, and that's something I learned the hard way. But we're working on it now. We're fixing it. Me and my wife, we're really good about it now.
nice,
Yeah, only
nice.
took 2 years. Oh, I'm sorry, it took only 10 years. It's because
Oh, just
I was chasing the carrot, right? I thought there was a carrot at the end of the stick, but there was never a carrot.
yeah. Thanks a lot for the answer. And I have another quick question. Is like, what do you think about collecting like art of games and films? Because I feel like I used to buy them. Right now, I don't want to buy them anymore.
Oh yeah, I'm still a big fan of that stuff, but like there's like ArtStation and stuff, you know, so it's kind of like much cheaper.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yes.
so there was
You're
another
right.
yeah, so there's another question that I'm gonna actually answer, and then I'm gonna end the class. Um, so
Thank
one of
you.
the questions that was asked is like about events and stuff, like what's kind of the etiquette. It's really simple, man. Like you go to these events, and you just be yourself. Be as nice and courteous to others as much as possible. Treat everybody like they're a boss until proven otherwise. What does that mean? Even if they're like a student just like you, treat them like they're badass. Like, if they treat you really nice and you're really nice to them and just natural connection, then just let that be. Don't have an agenda to only talk to art directors or senior concept artists or people who are already hired. Like, of course, talk to those people too, but I'm just saying treat everyone equally. And people can tell whether you have an agenda or not. Don't push your portfolio on people, even if it is an occasion where people would be able to check your portfolio. Just know that people want to relate with other people. They don't want to relate with some sort of person who's like clearly guided by some sort of agenda, you know? If you just be friendly with people, show your stuff to people naturally and organically. Like let me give you an example of an organic transition. Let's say you're at a bar after one of these events and you guys are all hanging out, or a party, whatever, and you're just talking to this person. You guys are talking about games and you're just having a great conversation and it's engaging and fun. And two scenarios can play out of this where that's it. You guys just have a good night and like you exchange contacts, whether that's through Facebook or whatever. You guys become buds and then you move on with your lives, right? Whether that person was an art director or not is irrelevant. You guys are just good buds. And then the alternative solution or alternative reality is maybe they ask you or you ask them in a very organic way. One example would be if they asked you like, oh, so what do you do? Like, and you're, oh, I'm like a concept artist. Yeah, I'm just trying to, come here and see if I can find some opportunities and say, oh, did you bring your portfolio? Yeah, I did. Would you mind checking it out? Yeah, dude, let's do it. So that's like a normal and organic kind of transition. The other transition that's also organic is if you instigated a conversation by saying, he's like, man, it's been great talking with you. I really want some feedback on my portfolio. And it's all good if you don't want to check it out, but I just would love for you to take a look at it. So that way you started that, and if they're like, yeah, let's do it. Or if you're in the bathroom, you don't do that, which would lead me to the not so organic situation. Let's say you haven't even talked to that person at all, not even for 1 second. You go straight up to them and say, hey, can you check my portfolio? Like that is a straight like snipe shot, really abrasive. People are not as positively reactive to that than as they are to just an organic conversation. And I think a lot of you guys already know that. So just don't let like
Yeah.
your teachers and stuff, like these like institutionalized schools tell you that there's some sort of magical way to interact with people. No, it's pretty much what I explained. Just be yourself, be casual, and like I said, make friends with everyone that you want to make friends with. And I say you want to, meaning like if someone treats you poorly, then you don't have to hang out with them. You don't have to treat them poorly back. You can just stop engaging in them, right? Because even if they're art director or a good concept artist, it's irrelevant because you don't want to work with those people. You just don't. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, just be organic about it. Go to these events, show your stuff. There's occasions where you can literally go up to somebody and say, look at my portfolio. And those will be the portfolio reviews where someone's literally designated to sit there, look at your portfolio. It is completely a professional environment. But I'm just talking about outside of that, which is just casually walking around. And I know it can be really nerve-wracking to just talk to somebody, but trust me, most people are generally kind. But I've heard horror stories where people are just super like mean to other people, and as far as I'm concerned, a few of those people don't work in the industry anymore. Okay, because nobody wants to work with those assholes. And so be nice, be kind, and one really strong point about making friends with everyone is because let's say that guy that you met or that gal that you met at the event, you guys just really hit it off. You guys became friends online. You guys talk and you hang out often. You guys do Google Hangouts or you hang out on my Discord or whatever. You message each other often. When there's another event, you guys end up meeting up with each other. You guys go out to, you guys sync up often because you guys just really connect. And you do that for years. The next thing you know, either you or them are going to be something of a significant influence in the industry. Let's say that person who was just as bad as you were, or maybe just even worse, is now an art director at Bungie, because here's the thing. Becoming good at concept art, or just anything really, just takes time and effort, right? So with enough time and with enough effort, all of you guys in this class will be at some level of some skill set that could help each other out, right? And give each other opportunities in different jobs. And it would be completely organic because you guys are buds. There was no, like, it wasn't like Lauren was like, hey, you know, I'm going to buddy down with Alex because Alex is going to make it in the industry. No, she just happened to be in the same class. They have a common ground to start conversations in. And, you know, if they just keep in sync, you know, one day that could happen. And then Alex is like, hey, I know a really cool concept artist. You guys should try to bring him in. And it just works that way. And I want to make it clear, like 90% of like all the jobs I've ever gotten have been mostly through friends or colleagues or people I've met just randomly, even at these conventions, you know? And so it's very valuable. That's why I have the Discord. Like, you guys look at it now as a lot of you guys are just students, okay? But give it like 5 years, this Discord is going to be full of badasses. You understand me?
Yeah.
And it's going to be a treasure. It's going to be a gold mine for people to want to join. And then we'll handle it how people join then. But right now, it's already happening. There's already a lot of really good artists that are in the Discord, you know? And so imagine that's just how you are with people. Just generally, you're just friends and befriend people because that's just the right thing to do, you know? And like I said, all it takes to become great at art is some time and effort, right? So what that means is that you can completely be a terrible person and still be amazing at art. You understand me?
Yeah.
And so don't think that someone's art skills reflects their personality, because I wish that was true. But it's completely not true. I know people that are, you guys, I promise you that I know of an artist right now on the top of my head that you guys all admire, and you guys think that's an amazing artist and truly believe that they're a great inspiration to the industry, that if you were to meet in person and really get to know them, find out they're a complete jerk-off.
Who is it?
I'm not going to tell you because that's not how I roll. See? That's why I have so many friends. You don't rat people out, dude. You gotta, but when that day comes and you tell me hey, I met this person, and man, I'm like, welcome to the light. Now that you see, let's talk about it. Let me talk about my experiences with this person. And you'd be like, whoa, really? And it will only justify and compound your own personal experience. Yeah, let me give you an example of what this person said. This person said that he was annoyed with his fans coming to him and constantly berating him, like with asking him all these questions and telling them about their ideas and stuff like that. And he's like, these people are just like meat sacks with ideas. I'm sick of it. And I'm just like,
Wow.
Are you serious? Yeah, this is what he said, man. And I'm just like, all right, well, we're not going to hang out often, man. And so, but then I have met people, which I will be more than happy to talk about, that are amazing. Like Jama. Like when me and Jama met up, dude, Jama has been there for me in some really dark times, and he barely even knew me. And whenever I meet people like that, I'm like, got to keep them close. Got to catch them all. You know, yes, he's a great artist, and he's a really inspirer of the world, but that's irrelevant. Okay?
Cool.
So, hope that helps. Gives you some insight
Yeah.
on how to approach this thing called the industry. Yeah, don't rely on just the quality of people's artwork. Focus on the quality of people's personality, people who are cool. Yeah, because that's more valuable. And keep that in mind. People will remember if you're a jerk off. So don't be a jerk off. And if you are, by the way, if you are someone that's just generally mean and prefers being mean, okay, there's actually nothing against, I have nothing against that. Just know that you will be poorly liked, okay? You could totally be mean. Just do freelance and just do everything via email. You know, you can live your life that way, man. That's fine. Totally be that type of person. You're not, as long as you're not hurting anybody, right? That's all that really matters.
Kind of isolated.
Yeah, just live in your cave and just be a curmudgeon on your own. I actually know a few artists that I love. I love them. They're really nice people, but they're kind of like super pessimistic and kind of like they're never mean to people directly, but they're just kind of like have this overtly like contrarian point of view of everything. Like they hate everything, they hate everyone, but in like an innocent way. And I count them as really good friends of mine. I actually know them. I think they're really cool people and they're really great artists. They never say stuff like that stuff I told you, you know? And they work really well from freelance. They seem to do well freelance. And I'm like, yeah, just sit there, man, live there. You're fine. Because nobody wants a negative Nancy, right? Like someone just like constantly hates everything. It's really frustrating.
Yeah.
Anyway. No, I gotta get going. It's getting late.
Oh.
What was the question? Maybe I can answer it quickly. If not, I can answer it next time.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering, like.
Can't answer it. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Dang it, Anthony! I knew you were just talking about yourself when you're talking to mean people. I'm kidding. Okay.
Yeah, that was me that actually said that. I am. That's the twist. Not M. Night Shyamalan, you guys. Yeah.
All right.
So say your question.
So when I'm designing initially, I struggle to find the balance between good shape and structure. Like, if I can get a really cool design for the torso, when I try to, put legs on there or arms on there, it actually requires like a reshaping of the torso, and then it just slows things down. So I don't know how you go about that. Like, I tried designing the whole thing at once, and that kind of works, but it's really hard to think about that stuff. But yeah,
you should design the whole thing at once. You already said it's easier to do that. And you just got to sharpen that blade. You got to do it more often.
Okay.
It's difficult, of course, but it's even more difficult because it goes back to kind of, I believe, what Alex was running into, where if you spend too much time on something, and then when you have to make a change to it, it's a little bit harder to make a change.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story that kind of sums this up, and then I'm going to move on. So, like, when I was working at Sony, I did this painting, and it took me like 5 hours, and I had to do it for the next day. So I was spending all this time, and I was painting it, and I actually enjoyed it, and I was really proud of it. I thought, like, man, this is really good. But, every so often I do sketches. I do these little sketches to just practice. And so I did a sketch on the side along with the painting, and I was going back and forth. And then eventually I had to go to lunch. And so I was, all right, so I saved my file, and then I saved my sketch, and then I went to lunch. And then I came back from lunch, and I opened my file, but it was the sketch. And I was like, wait a minute, where's my concept that I painted, right? So I was like, maybe I named them differently. Like maybe I saved my file under the sketch's name, and I saved my sketch under the file's name. So I was trying to look for that, like the two different files. But I realized there's only one. There was only the concept name, but with the sketch that overrided the whole painting. And that's when I realized that I accidentally saved over my file with the sketch. Yeah. And so, for 10 minutes, I sat there scouring the internet for like some sort of way to solve this problem. But there was no salvation for me. And I sat there for like another 10 minutes potentially and just was like just crying inside because I had to finish it, right? And so what ended up happening is I had to do it over, obviously, 'cause it's real work. I can't just not do it, And so the next day hold on, helping my wife. Yeah, you can figure that out. I went ahead and just started painting, right? My concept again. I was like, I have to. And about an hour and a half later, not only did I have the painting back to where it was better. Because there was a fundamental problem with the whole painting was like the overall posture and the anatomy was like really off, but I was just kind of massaging it to try to fix it the whole time. And that's when I discovered like the first like hour or so, because back then I painted much slower, like the first hour or two, is really all that matters. And then all that comes after that is just refining and tweaking and correcting. I realized that it wasn't really me 5 hours of painting. It was more like an hour of designing and then 4 hours of correcting my painting. Make sense? And so that's when I discovered that you should just, you should get the broader strokes much sooner and get the full picture much sooner, because it saves you so much more time. And so I just started practicing that and got better and better and better and better until the point where I can do these like 5 to 10 minute paintings now, you know? And I can paint like a full thing start to finish, but it takes time. Okay?
Cool, thanks.
All right. Well, with that, guys, you guys have a great weekend. I appreciate y'all. I'll see you guys next class. Be sure to use the Discord, hang out with each other, talk to each other, conversate, make friends, man. I'm telling you, it's really very powerful. Peace out, friends, and good night, or good morning, or good evening, or good afternoon, whatever time zone you're at. Laters. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you like the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.